The explosion lit up the night sky, a brilliant burst of light that could be seen from Earth's surface. People around the world stopped what they were doing to watch, their faces filled with awe and uncertainty. The alien mothership, once an imposing symbol of dominance, was gone, shattered into fragments that drifted lifelessly through space. For the first time in weeks, humanity felt a glimmer of hope. Back on the ground, Lieutenant Laura Bennett sat alone in the command center, staring at the monitors showing the aftermath. Her hands rested limply in her lap, still clutching the edge of her uniform jacket. The weight of Daniel's sacrifice pressed heavily on her chest. He had given everything to ensure the mission succeeded, and while his bravery had saved countless lives, it didn't make the loss any easier to bear. Around her, soldiers worked quietly, their movements subdued as they processed what had happened. No one spoke much. There was nothing left to say. Hours later, the remaining alien ships began to withdraw. They didn't attack or retaliate. Instead, they simply turned away, their sleek forms disappearing into the void of space. Before they left, however, they transmitted one final message. It appeared on every screen connected to the internet, just like before. But this time, the tone was different. The words scrolled across in blocky letters. Asterisk, we underestimated you. Perhaps we have much to learn. Asterisk. Laura read the message over and over, her mind racing. The aliens' arrogance had been replaced by something else. Curiosity, maybe even respect. They hadn't expected humanity to fight so fiercely, to sacrifice so willingly. To them, such actions must have seemed incomprehensible, almost alien. But for Laura, it was proof of what she'd always believed. Humanity's strength wasn't in its technology or power, it was in its spirit. As the days passed, Earth began to heal. Weather patterns stabilized, crops grew again, and wildlife returned to normal behavior. The scars left by the aliens' experiments would take time to fade, but the planet was resilient, just like the people who called it home. Governments and scientists worked together to study the remnants of the alien fleet, hoping to learn more about their technology and intentions. But for most people, life slowly returned to some semblance of normalcy. In the weeks that followed, Laura found herself standing outside the command center late one evening, gazing up at the stars. The sky was clear, dotted with pinpricks of light, stretching endlessly into infinity. She thought about Daniel and the others who had given their lives, not just during the final mission, but throughout the entire ordeal. Their courage had changed the course of history, proving that humanity could stand up to even the most daunting adversaries. But Laura also knew this wasn't the end. Somewhere out there, beyond the reaches of Earth's atmosphere, the aliens were watching. They hadn't been defeated. They had retreated. And while they might not return anytime soon, their parting words lingered in Laura's mind. Asterisk, perhaps we have much to learn, asterisk. She smiled faintly, feeling a strange mix of pride and determination. Humanity had proven itself capable of incredible things when pushed to its limits. But the universe was vast, filled with mysteries and challenges yet unknown. This encounter with the aliens was only the beginning, a reminder that Earth wasn't alone in the cosmos. Turning back toward the command center, Laura took a deep breath and stepped inside. The work wasn't done. There were still questions to answer, strategies to plan, and lessons to learn. But for now, humanity had earned a moment of peace and the chance to prepare for whatever came next. The aliens had laughed at humanity's aim, but they hadn't realized the target wasn't the point. It was the spirit behind the shot that truly mattered. And as long as that spirit endured, humanity would never stop reaching for the stars. The final mission began under the cover of darkness, with the team's craft slicing through the atmosphere toward the alien mothership. Captain Daniel Carter sat in the pilot's seat, his hands steady on the controls despite the weight of what lay ahead. Beside him, Lieutenant Laura Bennett double-checked the device they planned to plant, a small but powerful piece of technology designed to overload the alien systems. Behind them, Private Ryan Hayes and Sergeant Megan Cole exchanged quiet words, their voices barely audible over the hum of the engines. Everyone knew this could be their last flight. As they approached the massive ship, its surface shimmered faintly, reflecting the light of distant stars. The damage from the previous infiltration was still visible. Scorch marks and darkened sections marred its once perfect exterior, but it was far from disabled. Alien drones patrolled the area, scanning for intruders. The team held their breath as Daniel maneuvered the craft into a blind spot between two smaller vessels. For a moment, it seemed like they might slip past unnoticed. "Hold steady," Daniel whispered, guiding the ship closer to an entry hatch. With a soft hiss, the hatch opened, revealing the dimly lit corridor beyond. The team moved quickly, stepping out of the craft and into the alien vessel. Their stealth suits helped them blend into the shadows, but the eerie environment kept them on edge. The walls pulsed faintly with light, and strange symbols floated in midair, shifting unpredictably. Every step felt like walking through a dream or a nightmare. Laura led the way, her mind racing as she deciphered the alien interface at each junction. "This way," she said, pointing down a narrow passage. Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the settings on her scanner. They were running out of time. Behind her, Ryan and Megan kept watch, their weapons ready. The aliens hadn't detected them yet, but it was only a matter of minutes before their presence was discovered. As they turned a corner, a group of alien drones appeared, hovering silently in the air. For a split second, everyone froze. Then Megan raised her weapon and fired a burst of electromagnetic pulses, disabling the drones instantly. Alarms blared throughout the ship, echoing like a deafening roar. "They know we're here," Ryan shouted, glancing back the way they came. Alien soldiers, tall, glowing-eyed figures, emerged from nearby corridors, moving with unnatural speed. "Keep moving," Daniel barked, urging the team forward. They couldn't afford to stop now. Finally, they reached the heart of the ship, the central core. It was a vast chamber filled with pulsating energy streams and floating platforms. In the center stood a massive orb, glowing brightly and humming with power. This was it, the hub controlling the aliens' entire network. Laura stepped forward, clutching the device tightly. "Cover me," she said, her voice firm. Ryan and Megan positioned themselves near the entrance, firing at any approaching aliens, while Daniel stayed close to Laura, watching her back. She worked quickly, attaching the device to the base of the orb and activating its countdown sequence. A low hum filled the room as the device began syncing with the alien systems. "We've got 5 minutes," Laura announced, backing away from the orb. "Let's move." But the aliens weren't about to let them escape. Reinforcements poured into the chamber, surrounding the team. Trapped, Daniel made a decision. "Go," he ordered, turning to face the advancing aliens. "I'll hold them off." "No," Laura protested, but Daniel's expression left no room for argument. "You have to get out of here. That's an order." Tears welled in Laura's eyes, but she nodded, knowing there was no time to waste. With Ryan and Megan leading the way, she sprinted toward the exit. Behind them, Daniel stood his ground, firing until his weapon ran dry. He didn't look back. By the time the team reached the craft, the countdown had less than a minute remaining. They launched just as the device detonated, sending a shockwave rippling through the mothership. On board the craft, Laura stared out the window, watching as the alien vessel fractured and collapsed, consumed by its own energy. It was over, but at a cost. Humanity had shown the aliens something they couldn't understand: self-sacrifice. And in doing so, they had proven that Earth wasn't theirs to control. The aftermath of the infiltration mission left both humanity and the aliens reeling. The alien mothership, once an unshakable symbol of dominance, now drifted erratically in Earth's orbit. Its shimmering surface flickered like a faulty light bulb, and sections of the massive vessel were darkened entirely. For the first time since their arrival, the aliens appeared vulnerable. Back on Earth, news of the successful operation spread quickly, sparking cautious hope among the population. People cheered in the streets, though many remained wary. After all, the aliens weren't defeated yet. In the command center, Captain Daniel Carter stood silently by the main monitor, his arms crossed as he watched footage of the damaged ship. Lieutenant Laura Bennett sat nearby, her eyes glued to streams of data pouring in from satellites tracking the alien fleet. The team had accomplished something extraordinary, but Laura knew they couldn't afford to celebrate just yet. "They're regrouping," she said suddenly, breaking the silence. Her voice was calm but urgent. "What makes you say that?" Daniel asked, turning to face her. "They've stopped experimenting with the environment for now," Laura explained. "But look at this." She pointed to a cluster of smaller ships moving toward the mothership. "They're reinforcing it, fixing whatever damage we caused." Daniel frowned. "So they're not done with us?" "No," Laura replied. "And I don't think they'll underestimate us again. This is their chance to retaliate, and they'll come at us harder than ever." Her words sent a ripple of unease through the room. Private Ryan Hayes and Sergeant Megan Cole exchanged worried glances. Both had risked their lives during the infiltration, and neither was eager to repeat the experience anytime soon. But Laura wasn't done analyzing the situation. She leaned closer to the screen, studying patterns in the aliens' movements. Something about their behavior still didn't add up. "Wait," she murmured, her brow furrowing. "This isn't just about repairing the ship. They're changing tactics." "How so?" Megan asked, stepping closer. Laura hesitated before answering. "Think about it. Every time we act, they respond differently. At first, they laughed at us. Then they mocked us. After that, they tested us. Now, I think they're learning from us." The room fell silent as her words sank in. The aliens weren't just reacting. They were adapting. Their arrogance had blinded them at first, but humanity's persistence had forced them to evolve. It was a sobering realization. If the aliens continued to learn from every interaction, then winning wouldn't be as simple as landing another blow. Humanity would need to stay one step ahead constantly. Daniel rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of the situation. "So what do we do now? Keep hitting them until they leave?" "No," Laura said firmly. "We can't keep playing their game. We need to end it. And how do we do that?" Ryan asked, his tone skeptical. Laura turned to face the group, her expression resolute. "By showing them something they can't understand. Something they've never seen before." It took hours of brainstorming, but eventually, Laura outlined a daring plan. Instead of focusing on physical attacks or technological sabotage, they would exploit the aliens' greatest weakness, their inability to comprehend self-sacrifice. The aliens viewed humans as predictable creatures driven by survival instincts. What if humanity proved them wrong? The idea was risky, almost unthinkable. A small team, including Daniel and Laura, would volunteer to board the mothership again, not to destroy it, but to plant a device deep within its core. The device wouldn't cause immediate destruction. Instead, it would release a signal designed to overload the aliens' interconnected systems. The catch? Once activated, there would be no way out for the team. When Daniel presented the plan to the others, resistance was immediate. "You're asking us to walk into a death trap," Megan said bluntly. "I'm asking you to trust me," Laura replied, her voice steady. "If we pull this off, we won't just stop them. We'll show them who we really are. That's worth the risk." After much debate, the team agreed. Preparations began immediately. As they suited up for the final mission, Daniel looked at each member of his team, pride and sadness mingling in his chest. Humanity had been pushed to its limits, but it refused to break. And maybe, just maybe, that refusal would change everything. With a deep breath, the team boarded their craft and launched into the sky. The aliens might have laughed at humanity's aim, but they hadn't realized yet that the target wasn't the point. It was the spirit behind the shot that truly mattered. The tension in the command center was thick enough to cut with a knife. Captain Daniel Carter paced back and forth, his boots echoing softly against the tiled floor. Lieutenant Laura Bennett sat at her station, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she analyzed data from the recent operation. The team had managed to disrupt the aliens' experiments temporarily, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time before they struck back, and harder this time. "We can't keep playing defense," Daniel said abruptly, stopping in the middle of the room. His voice carried a weight that silenced the murmurs around him. "Every move we make, they counter. Every step forward, they push us 2 steps back. We need to change the game." Laura looked up from her screen, her sharp eyes meeting his. "You're right," she said. "But how do we do that without walking straight into their trap?" Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned to the rest of the team. Private Ryan Hayes and Sergeant Megan Cole exchanged glances, sensing what was coming next. "We take the fight to them," Daniel said finally. "Not just here on Earth. We go to them." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. An infiltration mission. It was risky, almost suicidal, but Daniel's tone left no room for argument. Humanity couldn't afford to wait for the aliens to make the next move. If they wanted to survive, they had to act now. Laura leaned forward, her mind already racing through possibilities. "If we're going in, we'll need a plan," she said. "Something small, precise. We can't overwhelm them with force. They're too powerful for that. But maybe we can exploit their arrogance." Over the next few hours, the team worked tirelessly to devise a strategy. They decided to use outdated technology, weapons and equipment the aliens would dismiss as harmless, to infiltrate the alien mothership. The goal wasn't destruction, it was disruption. By targeting key systems inside the ship, they hoped to create chaos long enough to weaken the aliens' hold on Earth. Volunteers were needed for such a dangerous mission, and Daniel didn't hesitate to lead it himself. Laura insisted on joining him, arguing that her knowledge of the aliens' behavior was crucial. Ryan and Megan stepped forward without hesitation, knowing the stakes were too high to sit on the sidelines. The night of the mission arrived quickly. Dressed in stealth suits designed to mimic the shimmering surface of the alien ships, the team boarded a modified aircraft and launched into the sky. As they approached the mothership, their hearts pounded in unison. The massive vessel loomed above them, its surface glowing faintly like molten metal. For a moment, it felt impossible to believe they could pull this off. "Stay sharp," Daniel whispered over the comms as they positioned themselves near an entry point. "Remember, we're not here to win. We're here to distract." With a deep breath, Laura activated the decoy signals. The devices emitted low-frequency pulses that mimicked the aliens' own communication patterns. Almost instantly, the ship responded, opening a hatch large enough for the team to slip inside. They moved quickly, sticking to the shadows as they navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the alien vessel. Inside, the environment was surreal. Walls pulsed with light, and strange symbols floated in midair, shifting and rearranging themselves constantly. The air hummed with energy, making their skin tingle. Despite the eerie surroundings, Laura remained focused, guiding the team toward their objective, a central control hub where the aliens coordinated their experiments. As they reached the hub, Megan planted charges while Ryan kept watch. Laura accessed a nearby console, her hands trembling as she deciphered the alien interface. She discovered something critical, a flaw in their system. While the aliens' technology was advanced, it relied heavily on interconnected networks. Disrupt one node, and the entire structure could collapse. "This is it," Laura whispered, her voice barely audible. "If we hit this spot, we can bring down their shields." Daniel nodded. "Do it." With a final keystroke, Laura triggered the sequence. Alarms blared throughout the ship, and the aliens responded with fury. But it was too late. The team had already accomplished their mission. As they raced back to the exit, explosions rocked the corridor behind them, lighting up the alien ship like fireworks. They escaped just in time, watching from a distance as the mothership faltered. The aliens' laughter had faded, replaced by confusion and anger. Humanity had struck a blow. not with brute force, but with ingenuity. And for the first time, the aliens realized their mistake. They weren't dealing with simple subjects anymore. They were facing a species determined to survive. The aftermath of the operation brought a fragile calm, but it didn't last long. While humanity celebrated their small victory in making the aliens take notice, strange changes began to ripple across Earth. At first, they were subtle. Weather patterns shifted slightly, and some crops grew faster than usual. Farmers in the Midwest reported unusually heavy rains, while regions in Africa experienced sudden droughts. Wildlife acted erratically. Birds flew in erratic patterns, and fish swarmed unnaturally close to shorelines. Captain Daniel Carter noticed these reports piling up on his desk in the command center. He frowned as he flipped through them, sensing something was off. Lieutenant Laura Bennett, however, was the first to connect the dots. "It's them," she said one evening, pointing to a map covered in notes about environmental anomalies. "They're experimenting." Daniel looked at her sharply. "Experimenting? On what?" "On us," Laura replied, her voice steady but grim. "On our planet. They've been watching us this whole time, but now they're testing how Earth reacts when they tweak things." Her words sent a chill through the room. The team gathered around as Laura explained her theory. She believed the aliens weren't just observing humanity. They were studying Earth itself. Their advanced technology allowed them to manipulate ecosystems on a massive scale, and they were using Earth as a living laboratory. Weather disruptions, crop failures, and animal behavior were all side effects of their experiments. Private Ryan Hayes shook his head in disbelief. "So they're not here to conquer or destroy us. They're just playing around with our world like it's some kind of science project." "Exactly," Laura said. "And that's why we need to act fast. If we don't stop them, the damage could become permanent." Sergeant Megan Cole crossed her arms, her expression hardening. "How do we fight something like that? We can't even get close to their ships." Laura hesitated, then turned to Daniel. "We hit them where it hurts, their curiosity. They think they understand us, but they don't. We use that against them." Daniel nodded slowly, considering her words. "You mean show them we're not just passive subjects, that we'll fight back no matter what?" "Yes," Laura said firmly. "But this time, we aim bigger. We target their manipulations, not their ships. Make them realize messing with Earth comes at a cost." The team got to work immediately. Using data collected during previous operations, Laura identified patterns in the aliens' experiments. She discovered that their actions followed a sequence: observe, test, analyze, repeat. By predicting their next move, humanity could disrupt their plans before they cause more harm. It was risky, but it was their best shot. Days later, the humans launched a counter-operation. This time, they focused on areas affected by the aliens' interference. Ground teams used electromagnetic pulses to disrupt alien drones monitoring weather patterns. Others deployed decoy signals near farmland to confuse sensors analyzing crop growth. In coastal regions, divers planted devices designed to interfere with underwater probes studying marine life. The aliens noticed almost instantly. Their response was swift and aggressive, deploying swarms of drones to counter the human efforts. But unlike before, the aliens seemed frustrated rather than amused. Their movements became erratic, their tactics less calculated. For the first time, they appeared unsure of themselves. Back in the command center, Laura watched the monitors closely, her hands trembling with adrenaline. "It's working," she whispered. "They're losing control." Daniel stood beside her, his jaw clenched. "Let's hope it's enough." As the operation unfolded, the stakes grew higher. The aliens retaliated by intensifying their experiments, causing storms to rage and rivers to overflow. Entire towns were evacuated as floods swept through low-lying areas. The humans pressed on despite the chaos, determined to prove that Earth wasn't theirs to toy with. By the end of the operation, both sides had reached a tipping point. The aliens withdrew their drones temporarily, retreating to assess the situation. Humanity, battered but unbroken, braced for what came next. Laura stared at the screen, exhaustion etched on her face. "They underestimated us again," she said quietly. "But I don't think they'll make that mistake a third time." Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we'd better be ready." The battle for Earth had only just begun. The final operation was set into motion under the cover of night. The air in the command center buzzed with nervous energy as Captain Daniel Carter and Lieutenant Laura Bennett monitored every detail. Outside, teams worked in silence, their movements precise and deliberate. This wasn't just another staged attack. It was a carefully orchestrated performance designed to push the aliens to their limits. If it succeeded, it could change everything. Private Ryan Hayes stood at the edge of a rocky ridge, his hand steady on the controls of a drone launcher. Sergeant Megan Cole crouched nearby, her eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of trouble. Together, they coordinated with other units scattered across the desert, each playing a vital role in the plan. Spotlights flickered on, casting long beams of light into the sky. Modified drones hummed softly as they ascended, their signals mimicking the sound of approaching missiles. It was a symphony of deception, and everyone had to stay in sync. Above them, the alien fleet loomed like a storm cloud. The ships shimmered faintly in the moonlight, their surfaces rippling as if alive. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, as the first wave of drones reached the barrier, the aliens reacted. Their shields flared to life, deflecting the harmless projectiles with ease. But instead of dismissing the attack as before, they paused. Their ships moved closer, their sensors scanning the area with intense precision. Something about this operation felt different, more calculated, more dangerous. Back in the command center, Laura watched the monitors intently. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, analyzing data streams in real time. "They're hesitating," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. "They don't know what to make of this." Daniel nodded, his eyes glued to the screen. "Good. Let's keep them guessing." As the operation unfolded, the humans introduced new elements to the display. Ground teams lit up the desert with bursts of colored smoke, creating shifting patterns that resembled explosions. Others used high-frequency sound waves to create vibrations near the alien ships, mimicking the effects of powerful weapons. To anyone watching, it looked like a full-scale assault. But Laura knew better. Every move was designed to confuse, not harm. The aliens' response grew more intense. Instead of simply laughing off the attack, they began deploying countermeasures. Small drones zipped through the air, analyzing the smoke and sound waves with glowing probes. Larger vessels descended slightly, their hulls pulsing with energy. For the first time since their arrival, they seemed uncertain, unsure of humanity's intentions or capabilities. Laura leaned closer to the monitor, her heart pounding. "They're adapting," she whispered, "but they're also overthinking. They're trying to figure out what we're planning next." "That's exactly what we want," Daniel replied, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. "Keep them on edge." As the operation reached its climax, Laura noticed something strange. One of the alien ships emitted a low-frequency pulse, sending ripples through the air. The vibration was subtle but unmistakable. At first, she thought it might be an attack, but then she realized it was something else entirely. The pulse seemed to resonate with the humans' equipment, almost as if the aliens were attempting to communicate. "Captain," she said urgently, turning to Daniel, "I think they're trying to talk to us." Daniel frowned. "Talk? How?" "I'm not sure yet," Laura admitted. "But whatever they're doing, it's not hostile. It's exploratory." The realization sent a ripple of hope through the team. Perhaps the aliens weren't just mocking humanity. They were genuinely curious. If that was true, then maybe there was a way to bridge the gap between their species. Laura quickly relayed her findings to the field teams, urging them to maintain their positions while she analyzed the pulse further. For hours, the standoff continued. The aliens tested the humans' resolve, probing their defenses and studying their reactions. Meanwhile, Laura worked tirelessly to decode the meaning behind the pulse. She didn't have all the answers, but one thing was clear: the aliens had underestimated humanity. And now they were beginning to realize it. As dawn broke over the horizon, the operation came to an end. The humans withdrew, leaving the aliens to ponder what had just happened. Back in the command center, the team gathered around Laura, their faces filled with cautious optimism. They hadn't won the war, but they had achieved something far more important. They had made the aliens take notice. And that was only the beginning. The staged operations began to yield unexpected results. Each time the humans launched a seemingly harmless attack, the aliens responded with growing curiosity. What started as simple experiments, like smoke screens and sound waves, evolved into more elaborate displays designed to provoke thought rather than fear. Laura Bennett worked tirelessly behind the scenes, analyzing every interaction and refining their strategies. She noticed that the aliens weren't just observing, they were adapting. Their responses grew more complex, almost as if they were trying to communicate back. One evening, after another successful operation, Laura gathered the team in the command center. Captain Daniel Carter stood at the front of the room, arms crossed as he listened to her report. "They're learning," she said, pointing to footage of the aliens' latest reaction. "Every time we do something unpredictable, they respond differently. It's not random, it's calculated." Daniel nodded slowly. "So what's next? We keep throwing smoke and noise at them until they get bored?" "No," Laura replied firmly. "We need to push further. Make them question us. Right now, they see us as amusing but insignificant. We have to change that." Her words sparked a debate among the team. Some argued that escalating their efforts could provoke the aliens into retaliation. Others believed it was worth the risk. Private Ryan Hayes spoke up, his voice calm but steady. "If we don't try, we'll never know what they're capable of, or what we're capable of. Let's show them we're not just punching bags." Sergeant Megan Cole agreed. "We've got nothing to lose at this point. If we can make them think twice about us, maybe we can turn this thing around." With the team on board, Laura proposed a bold new plan. Instead of relying solely on distractions, they would simulate a coordinated assault, one that appeared dangerous enough to catch the aliens off guard. The goal wasn't to harm them, but to demonstrate humanity's ability to adapt and strategize under pressure. To pull it off, they'd need precise timing, flawless execution, and a lot of luck. The operation took place 3 days later. Under cover of darkness, a group of modified drones flew toward the alien fleet, emitting low-frequency signals designed to mimic missile launches. At the same time, ground teams used high-powered spotlights to create the illusion of advancing troops. The aliens reacted instantly, deploying their usual defenses. But this time, something was different. Instead of dismissing the attack as another failed attempt, they hesitated. Their ships moved closer, scanning the area with intense beams of light. For a brief moment, it seemed as though they were unsure how to respond. Back at the command center, the room buzzed with excitement. Laura watched the monitors closely, her pulse racing. "They're confused," she whispered, almost to herself. "They didn't expect this." Daniel leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the screen. "Confusion is good, but what happens when they figure it out?" Laura didn't answer right away. She knew the aliens wouldn't stay uncertain for long. They were intelligent, perhaps even more so than humans had initially realized. But their intelligence came with a flaw: arrogance. They underestimated humanity because they couldn't understand its unpredictability. And that gave Laura an idea. "What if we use their arrogance against them?" she asked suddenly, turning to face the others. "They think they know us. That we're weak, disorganized, easy to control. What if we prove them wrong?" The team exchanged glances, intrigued but cautious. Laura explained her plan, a final operation that would combine all their previous tactics into one cohesive display. It would require everyone to work together seamlessly, pushing themselves to their limits. If it succeeded, It might force the aliens to reconsider their stance on humanity. If it failed, well, no one wanted to think about that. As preparations began, Daniel pulled Laura aside. "You really think this will work?" he asked, his tone serious. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I do know one thing. If we don't take the chance, we'll always wonder what might have been." Daniel nodded, a determined look in his eyes. "Then let's give them something to remember." The stage was set. Humanity's future hung in the balance, and for the first time since the invasion began, there was a glimmer of hope. The aliens had laughed at humanity's aim, but they hadn't realized yet that the target wasn't the point. It was the spirit behind the shot that truly mattered. The mockery continued, and it became clear that the aliens had no intention of stopping. Every failed attempt by humanity to challenge them was recorded and broadcast back to Earth in vivid detail. Footage of missiles exploding harmlessly against their shields played on endless loops on news channels. Fighter jets spiraling out of control after being swatted away like toys became nightly entertainment for billions. The aliens seemed to take great pleasure in showcasing humanity's futility, their strange, guttural laughter echoing through the transmissions. In the command center, morale sank lower than ever. Soldiers sat slumped at their stations, staring blankly at screens or muttering under their breath. Captain Daniel Carter paced the room, his jaw clenched as he tried to think of a way forward. Lieutenant Laura Bennett, however, remained focused. She studied the videos of failed attacks with sharp eyes, searching for patterns or clues. Her mind raced with possibilities, but one thought kept returning. The aliens weren't just laughing. They were learning. "They're testing us," Laura said aloud one evening, breaking the heavy silence. Daniel stopped pacing and turned to her. "Every time we attack, they adjust. They're figuring out how we think, how we react." Daniel frowned. "So what are you saying? We should stop fighting altogether?" "No," Laura replied quickly. "But maybe we need to change how we fight, or rather, why we fight." Her words puzzled him, but before he could ask for clarification, an idea began forming in her mind. If the aliens viewed humanity's aggression as amusing, perhaps the key wasn't to overpower them but to confuse them. Instead of launching direct attacks, she suggested staging operations designed to provoke curiosity rather than fear. The goal wouldn't be destruction, it would be engagement. Daniel hesitated. It was a risky plan, and convincing others to go along with it wouldn't be easy. But with no better options on the table, he agreed to give it a try. He selected a small team to carry out the new strategy, including Private Ryan Hayes and Sergeant Megan Cole. Both were skilled soldiers, but more importantly, they were adaptable and quick-thinking, qualities Laura believed would be crucial for this unconventional approach. The first operation took place 2 days later. A squad of drones equipped with harmless smoke canisters flew toward the alien fleet. When they reached the barrier, they released clouds of thick, swirling smoke. The aliens responded immediately, sending their own drones to investigate. As the machines darted around the smoke, the humans fired flares into the air, creating bursts of light that mimicked explosions. To anyone watching, it looked like another futile attack. But Laura knew better. This wasn't about hitting the aliens. It was about making them curious. And it worked. The aliens didn't laugh this time. Instead, they observed the display with what seemed like genuine interest. Their drones lingered longer than usual, analyzing the smoke and light patterns. Back at the command center, Laura watched the footage closely, her heart racing. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens hadn't dismissed humanity's actions outright. They were paying attention. Encouraged by the results, Daniel authorized a second operation. This time, the team used sound waves to create vibrations near the alien ships. The aliens responded again, though their reaction was harder to interpret. Some of their smaller vessels moved closer, scanning the area with beams of light. Others sent out probing signals, as if trying to communicate. Laura noted every detail, piecing together a clearer picture of the aliens' behavior. She realized they weren't just amused by humanity's persistence. They were intrigued. Humanity's determination to keep trying, even in the face of overwhelming odds, was something they couldn't fully comprehend. And that gave Laura hope. If the aliens saw humanity as a puzzle, then maybe the solution wasn't strength or force. Maybe it was something else entirely. As the operations continued, Daniel began to see the wisdom in Laura's approach. The aliens might have laughed at humanity's aim, but they hadn't realized yet that the target wasn't the point. The days following the arrival of the alien fleet were unlike anything Earth had ever experienced. Humanity teetered between fear and fascination, unsure whether to brace for war or prepare for dialogue. Governments around the world convened emergency meetings, but their efforts fell futile in the shadow of the massive ships hovering silently above. In Colorado, Captain Daniel Carter and Lieutenant Laura Bennett continued to lead the response from the Military Command Center, their eyes glued to monitors displaying real-time data about the invaders. Then, without warning, the aliens made their next move. A smaller craft detached from the mothership and descended toward Earth. It landed in a remote desert region, kicking up clouds of sand as it touched down. The ship was sleek and metallic, its surface rippling faintly as if alive. World leaders, scientists, and military personnel scrambled to the site, unsure what to expect. When the hatch opened, towering figures emerged, their forms both graceful and intimidating. They stood at least 12 feet tall, with elongated limbs and glowing eyes that seemed to pierce through anyone who met their gaze. The aliens wasted no time. Through a series of distorted sounds and fragmented English phrases, they introduced themselves, not as conquerors or saviors, but as observers. "We watch," one of them said, its voice deep and resonant. "You amuse us." Their words sent ripples of confusion through the gathered humans. Amuse? What did they mean by that? Laura watched the exchange closely, her sharp mind analyzing every detail. She noticed how the aliens carried themselves with an air of superiority, as though they viewed humanity as little more than insects under a microscope. But there was something else too: curiosity. Despite their mocking tone, they seemed genuinely intrigued by human behavior. Laura scribbled notes furiously, trying to piece together their motives. Meanwhile, the aliens demonstrated their power in ways that left humanity feeling utterly helpless. With a mere gesture, they disabled nuclear arsenals across the globe, rendering Earth's most fearsome weapons useless. Fighter jets sent to intercept them were swatted away like flies, their advanced technology making even the best human engineering look primitive. Every attempt at resistance ended in humiliation, broadcast live for the world to see. Public morale plummeted. Protests erupted in cities worldwide, with angry crowds demanding answers from their leaders. Social media buzzed with theories ranging from conspiracy to divine punishment. People began losing faith in their governments, their militaries, and even themselves. At the command center, tension ran high. Soldiers muttered darkly about surrender while officers debated drastic measures, none of which seemed likely to succeed. Amid the chaos, Laura noticed something odd. The aliens weren't just mocking humanity. They were studying them. Each failed attack elicited not just laughter, but also subtle changes in their behavior. They adjusted their shields, tested new defenses, and occasionally responded with challenges of their own. Once, after a missile exploded harmlessly against their barrier, they sent a drone to hover near a group of soldiers, as if daring them to try again. Laura realized the aliens saw these interactions as a game, a way to measure human ingenuity and resilience. "Captain," she said one evening, breaking the silence in the dimly lit command center. Daniel looked up from his desk, exhaustion etched on his face. "I think we're missing the point," Laura continued. "They're not here to destroy us. They're here to learn about us." Daniel frowned. "Learn what? How to push our buttons?" "No," Laura replied firmly. "They want to understand why we fight, why we keep trying even when we know we can't win." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. If the aliens truly wanted to study humanity, then perhaps aggression wasn't the answer. Maybe there was another way to engage with them, a way to turn their curiosity into an advantage. For the first time since the invasion began, Laura felt a flicker of hope, but she knew it wouldn't be easy. Convincing others to shift their focus from retaliation to understanding would take patience, courage, and a leap of faith. As she turned back to her monitor, Laura couldn't shake the feeling that the aliens were watching her too. Somewhere high above, hidden behind those shimmering hulls, their glowing eyes might already be analyzing her every move. The first sign of trouble came on a quiet Tuesday morning. The sun was just beginning its climb over the horizon, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. In a military command center buried deep beneath the rocky terrain of Colorado, Captain Daniel Carter sat hunched over a monitor, his brow furrowed in concentration. Around him, the hum of computers and the murmur of voices filled the room. Soldiers moved briskly between stations, their faces tense with anticipation. Something big was happening, though no one could quite put their finger on what it was. Then it happened. A blip appeared on the radar, a massive object moving at incredible speed toward Earth. At first, everyone thought it was a meteor or some kind of natural phenomenon. But as more blips followed, forming an unmistakable pattern, panic began to ripple through the room. These weren't random objects. They were ships, hundreds of them, and they were heading straight for Earth. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Laura Bennett, her voice steady but urgent. She stood near the main display screen, pointing to the growing cluster of dots. "It's not just one ship. There are too many to count." Daniel didn't respond immediately. He stared at the screen, his mind racing. This was the moment humanity had both feared and anticipated for centuries. First contact with an alien species. Only, this wasn't the peaceful meeting imagined in science fiction novels or hopeful speeches. This felt different, dangerous. Within minutes, the ships entered Earth's orbit. They were enormous, sleek, and unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Their surfaces shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting the sunlight in dazzling bursts. People around the world stopped what they were doing to watch the spectacle unfold. News outlets scrambled to cover the event, broadcasting live footage of the alien fleet hovering ominously above the planet. Social media exploded with theories, prayers, and sheer terror. Then came the message. It wasn't transmitted via radio waves or any known communication method. Instead, it simply appeared on every screen connected to the internet. Phones, TVs, even digital billboards in city centers. The words scrolled across in blocky, imperfect English. Asterisk, "You aim poorly." Asterisk. Confusion swept through the command center. Aim. What did they mean by that? Was it a threat? A joke? No one knew. Laura leaned closer to the screen, studying the text. Her sharp eyes caught something others missed. "They're mocking us," she said quietly, almost to herself. "What makes you say that?" Daniel asked, turning to look at her. "It's the tone," Laura replied. "They didn't say you're weak or you're doomed. They said we aim poorly, like they're laughing at us." As if to confirm her suspicion, the aliens demonstrated their point moments later. Without warning, missiles launched from various countries around the globe streaked upward toward the alien fleet. The projectiles never reached their targets. Invisible barriers flared to life, deflecting the attacks effortlessly. The aliens responded by broadcasting videos of the failed strikes back to Earth, accompanied by strange, guttural sounds that might have been laughter. Back in the command center, frustration boiled over. Soldiers slammed fists onto desks, muttered curses under their breath, or simply stared in disbelief. Humanity's best efforts had been brushed aside like toys. But amidst the chaos, Laura remained calm. She watched the replay of the intercepted missiles, her mind working furiously. There was something off about the whole situation. Why hadn't the aliens attacked yet? Why were they content to laugh instead? "Captain," she said finally, breaking the silence, "I think they're testing us." Daniel raised an eyebrow. Testing us? For what? I don't know yet, Laura admitted. But I think figuring that out is our best chance at surviving this. Outside, the world held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next.